So falling iron ore price and the impact on the Australian dollar, that's been heating up, hasn't it? What's your view of where things are going?
Yeah, Peter, good morning. It's been a heck of a ride for iron ore. We've talked about this before. At one point, iron ore miners were effectively making software-like margins, getting out of the ground for the teens of dollars a tonne, selling it for more than 200. That's a very, very good business, but it's not a business that's going to continue. We said that at the time. It's proven true. I didn't expect the timing to be quite so quick, to be honest. But the key reality, I think, for a couple of reasons is, firstly, it's going to hurt shareholders because profits will fall. Secondly, it hurts the federal government revenue at a time when, frankly, we'd really rather it didn't. And it's also pushing the Australian dollar down. And we've seen it down under 72 cents, with some people saying it might even have a 6 in front of it at some point. Now, the positive, if you want to take one from it, and we should, is that a lower dollar is actually really good for our exporters. So at a time when we're looking for economic recovery, economic growth, trying to keep people employed, if the dollar falls and stays down, that really does give our exporters a leg up. Now, not good for our importers. You've always got to pay the piper somewhere. But net, it should be a good way to get the economy stimulated, particularly when it comes to jobs, particularly when it comes to export trade.
Yeah, and to be fair to the government too, it had always factored in a lower iron ore price in the budget.
One of my favourite things, I did like a budget, Peter. One of my favourite things in the budget was Treasury and/or the government, whoever's made the call, actually put a long-term price of $55 a tonne in, which at the time people were saying, oh, it's over $200, that's unreasonable. That was a really, really smart thing to do. So budget balance or the budget forecast is okay. The reality, of course, is the number of dollars we get every day while the iron ore price stays higher than that is effectively extra money that we didn't expect, didn't count on. Given the budget position, we wanted that to happen as long as physically possible. But as I said, it wasn't likely. And we're now seeing, look, it's still well above that price, by the way. So again, in terms of that estimate, we're still banking some dollars, but it will come down over time.
Yeah, I mean, and I wonder if this is an example of China trying to manipulate the price.
Wouldn't be at all surprised. Look, we've got the demand side and the supply side. The reality is, if you've got someone making 90% gross margins, every possible iron ore miner in the world is going to try and get something out of the ground, because it almost is quite literally money for jam iron. It's not quite that quick or easy to mine, but you're going to keep doing it. So there's a supply response, and as you rightly say, a demand response. China would desperately love to punish us on iron ore. They haven't been able to yet because they need it. And the reality is, there's only so many large iron ore producers. They've taken about every other industry to the woodshed. This one has stayed separately, though. We know they are cutting back on steel production. That's hurting demand. And as you say, that's part of the fall in price.
Let's go to Qantas, Scott, really tugging at the heartstrings with its latest ad that dropped yesterday. And I think more effective than the really dark advertising that the government had come up with in recent months too. This is very much, it's emotional, it's positive, and it's an example of business kind of taking the lead in trying to encourage higher vaccination.
Yeah, you've absolutely nailed it. That's exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's a positive ad. It's a heartwarming ad. It's a reason to go and do it rather than driving people out of fear. And that has a role, I suppose, to some degree in a pandemic. But the other one is simply, hey, guess what? If we can get this vaccination rate up, if we can get the jab and get out there again, things can improve. We can go back and see family and friends. We can go on holidays. We can do all those things. And Qantas is probably exactly the right business to be pushing this one, of course, because they're basically the ones who could take us there. But also, they've got that sense in our minds. We still, to some degree, hark back to that a glorious era of flight and the idea of the romance of going somewhere on a plane. Most of us who've travelled a lot maybe have lost a bit of that, but when you see it again after not travelling for a few years,
it's like seeing an old friend.
It really is. Of course, the WA Tourism Board now also saying they're calling for people to be completely vaccinated before entering the state, either returning residents or tourists. So you've got the combination of the tourism industry across the board, but the industry itself and Qantas in this case really pushing hard. As you've already said, businesses generally getting behind this push. And I think it's a smart move. I think giving people a reason to do it rather than doing it out of fear, I think is going to be an absolute addition to the vaccine push.
Good on you, Scott. Good to see you. We'll talk to you soon.